Okay, in our last part of our tutorial, we had created this sort of soft, semi-transparent purple background. We can add some other effects just to give that a slight texture, and you can just see the different types of things that you can add. So if we go up into the Object menu, Effects, and there are all sorts of effects that we can add. We're going to look at the inner glow, and we'll just add a little bit of slight bit of noise and a slight percentage on the choke. And what that does is it just gives a slight bit of texture to the whole background layer. So if you click on your layers menu, we're working on the background. We're going to add another rectangle on top of this, and this one will have our neon gradient. So we get our rectangle, we click and drag across the whole document, including into the bleed, and then you'll notice that it fills with just the default purple that we were last on. So if we go to our swatches, we'll pick that gradient map that we made, and that gives us our linear gradient across. If we want to put that on a slight angle, we can do that by going to Window, Color, Gradient, and then we can change the angle. So in the tutorial, it has you change it to about 110 degrees. You can change that slightly just depending on your liking. Maybe you'd like it at 120, or you can just experiment, say 140. That's up to you. So just pick one that you like. I'll stick with 110, which is given in the written tutorial. Now we've got it just on a slight angle. So that's the end to our background layer. So if we go into our layers, we'll lock the background layer. Next we're going to work on the circle layer. So we'll click on that and unlock that. And in the written tutorial, it doesn't tell you to do it in that order, but this will prevent you from accidentally changing anything on your background layer. So we'll want a circle on our circle layer. And first we need to create another gradient swatch. So just go into your swatches and then New Gradient Swatch. And this one will be Gradient Map 2. Again, a linear gradient. And we can pull off the other stops. You just click and drag and pull, because we only need 2 stops for this. The first one is going to be Neon Lime from your swatches, and the second one we're going to use the blue. Wait, I'm just going to double check that, sorry. We're going to choose this one. It will have blue to start. And then the last bit will be Neon Mint. And we're going to use that gradient for the circle. So we have this new gradient map. And then again, just we're on our circle layer. The next thing we're going to do is get the ellipse tool. So we've been using the rectangle. If you click and hold down on the little black triangle in the corner, we can get an ellipse. An ellipse is just an oval or a circle. Now if we want to create a perfect circle in proportion, you hold down the Shift key while you're dragging, and we'll create a circle that's just about in the center. So I'll click and drag. And if it didn't fill like you wanted it with the gradient map, just click on your swatches and then make sure that that's filled over here. Now one thing that's good about InDesign, if I just go back to my arrow selector and I move this around, you'll notice you see some guides. So when I get it and it turns pink across, then I'm exactly in the vertical center. And if I move it slightly, then I get sort of the crosshairs. Now that means that my circle is going to be exactly in the middle of the page. So you can use the automatic guides to make sure that you're in the center. If you feel that it's a little bit big, you can click on it, and while you're holding down the Shift key, you can make it a little bit smaller. Holding down the Shift will make sure that you're resizing in proportion, and then you can use those same tools. So now I know I'm exactly horizontally aligned, and then I can move it up and down until I see my vertical crosshair, and I'm right in the middle of the page. So there's my circle. And the next step that I want to do is we'll put a little bit of a drop shadow on that to give it a bit of depth. So I'm on my circle. I can go into the Object menu at the top, Effects, and I will pick Drop Shadow. So this is another effect that we can look at. At this one, the color, if we want our swatches, we're going to set our drop shadow to the pastel pink that we made. And we can leave the rest just about as is. We can click OK, and we should see a wee bit of a drop shadow on that appearing. Now, if you don't see it, Object, let's make sure I have my circle selected, Object, Effects, Drop Shadow. I think I didn't have that clicked on before, and Pastel Pink. OK, and OK. And now I can see my little bit of a drop shadow. I think last time I didn't have my object clicked on. So now I have the drop shadow, giving that a bit of a depth. If you want to hide all of those lines for a minute, if you go into the View and Screen Mode and hit Preview, you can start seeing what it will look like. And then you can go back to View, Screen Mode, Normal, and that shows you all of your little guides. The next thing we're going to do is work on adding some of the type. So back to our Layers menu, we're going to lock the Circle menu so we can't work on that anymore. And we're going to click on the Type Behind menu and unlock that. And this is where we'll start adding some of our text. So we get the T over to the side, the Text tool, and just click and drag a little text box and type a capital C, and we'll highlight that, and we're going to change our font on there. So in order to do that, if we go into our Window menu and we go into Type and Tables and Character, then we get the palette where we can change everything about our typography. So here we will use that new font that we've installed. If not, just pick another similar font. Maybe you can use Helvetica or something like that. So that's that Charlevoix Pro, and we want it an extra bold with a size of about 130. So we'll set that to 130 font. And then we can't see it there at the moment, so we're going to have to make that a little bit bigger. And the last thing that we need to do, so I'll click and highlight, we need to change the font color, and we're going to change that to, from black, we're going to change it to paper. And then when I click off of it, you'll see it's a white color. Now, because in our Layers palette, the Type Behind is underneath the circle, I can get my arrow key and I can drag that and move it, and it will go underneath my circle. So we want to position it just to the top left. We'll do something similar with the B. Now what you can do, we can just copy and paste that since we've already done all of the changes. So you can right click, which is your two-fingered mouse, and then we can do copy, and then over here we can right click again and do paste. Now we've got our C. We can drag it down here and then get our T, our text tool, and we'll just make that a B. And then we can position that so it's slightly underneath. So remember, this is going to kind of spell club. So we've got our two text behind, and again, just if you want to see what it's looking like, go to View, Screen Mode, Preview, and you can see what it's looking like without all of the different edges so far. And then back to View, Screen Mode, Normal. If you haven't already lately, just make sure you do a file save so that we've saved our progress to date. And then we'll work on the type on the top in the next part.